My relationship with my mother, Jackie, has always been complicated. Instead of calling her Mom, like most children do, we've always called her by her first name. She's always preferred it that way, insisting that Mom sounds like a title for someone older, and she's never seen herself that way. In her mind, using Mom would somehow age her, so for as long as I can remember, she's never wanted to take on that label. We've always been more like friends or neighbors in her eyes than mother and child. Jackie was in high school when she had me, and it wasn't planned. She refers to my pregnancy as an accident, which is something that's stuck with me over the years. I don't think she realizes the weight that word has carried for me, but it's always there. My biological father, Avery, and Jackie were high school sweethearts, but they were both young, reckless, and not prepared for what would come. When Jackie found out she was pregnant, Avery made it clear that he wasn't going to be her partner. He agreed to pay child support, but he wasn't interested in being there for her or raising me together. This was devastating for Jackie, although she doesn't always admit it. She had hopes, maybe naive ones, that having a baby would make things more serious between them, but Avery didn't see it that way. He made it clear that he wasn't ready to play house. As I grew up, the tension between Jackie and Avery never really went away. If anything, it only got worse. Jackie had trouble letting go of the resentment she held towards him, and it showed every time he came around. My dad would come to visit me or pick me up for our time together, but Jackie would almost always pick a fight. Sometimes it was over small things, other times bigger issues, mostly revolving around her anger that he didn't want to be with her. I was too young to understand what was happening at the time, and I didn't question her when she spoke badly about him. She would say things like, "He doesn't love you enough to marry me," or "Fathers are supposed to take care of their families, and your dad's just a deadbeat." As a child, I didn't fully grasp what she was saying, but as I got older, I began to see things from a different perspective. Fast forward to my adulthood, and I had my own family. My husband and I were expecting our first child, and it was an exciting time. Jackie, as expected, was involved in the pregnancy, though I could feel the tension between us still lingering. When my baby shower rolled around, I was excited to share the joy with everyone, but Jackie's jealousy became apparent. She'd always favored my half-sister, Leah, and there had been an unspoken competition for attention, which I had always resented. However, things took a turn when Jackie, in an effort to show me her superiority, invited my ex to my baby shower, hoping he would say something to make me feel insecure. To everyone's surprise, what my ex said instead was not what Jackie expected. He publicly expressed his admiration for how far I had come, the strength I had shown, and how proud he was of the life I had built. His words struck a nerve with Jackie, and she was left speechless. It was clear that she had expected him to belittle me or perhaps play into her narrative, but instead, he put me in a positive light, leaving her embarrassed. She left the event in tears, her plans backfiring completely. The moment felt like a vindication for me, for all the years of subtle undermining and for the way she had treated me growing up. In that moment, I realized that no matter what Jackie did, no matter how much she tried to diminish me, I had taken control of my own life. I had built my own family and was about to welcome a new chapter. And as much as she tried to play a game of jealousy and competition, it was clear that I had come out on top. As I grew older, I began to realize that my dad wasn't the villain Jackie always made him out to be. In fact, I started to see that he was the opposite. He was consistent and reliable. Every weekend, without fail, he would show up to visit me. He was always on time, always eager to spend time with me, and never once missed a child support payment. I could tell that he genuinely enjoyed being around me and that he cared about me deeply. Even though Jackie and he didn't get along, I knew that he was trying his best to be a good father. He wasn't perfect, but he was far from the deadbeat that Jackie had portrayed him as. His presence in my life meant more to me than anything else. He was there, and that was what mattered most to me. When I was 6, Jackie met Mike, the man she would go on to marry and who she now calls the love of her life. Watching her with him was a strange experience, as it revealed a completely different side of her. Mike was a laid-back, kind man who, from the start, accepted me into his life without hesitation. He treated me like his own daughter, which meant a lot to me, especially given how complicated my relationship with Jackie had always been. Mike was never a problem. He was steady, and he genuinely made an effort to be there for me when Jackie often didn't. He had a quiet strength, and I could always rely on him, something I couldn't always say about my mom. Soon after they married, Jackie became pregnant again, this time with Leah, my half-sister. I was thrilled when Leah was born. From the very beginning, I loved her, and over the years, she became my best friend. We're incredibly close, and I would do anything for her. But as much as I adore Leah, I can't ignore how differently Jackie treated the two of us. From the moment Leah was born, it was clear that she was Jackie's favorite. Jackie showered Leah with love and attention in a way I never experienced. I would watch them together, Jackie lighting up every time she was with Leah, buying her beautiful dresses, toys, and everything she wanted. Leah was, and still is, the apple of Jackie's eye. Meanwhile, I often felt like an afterthought. Jackie was distant and almost cold towards me, always making me feel like I didn't quite belong. She would spend little time with me, and when she did, there was always this undercurrent of tension, as though my presence alone irritated her. I tried to win her affection, but it was as if no matter what I did, it was never enough. Requests for simple things like a new dress or a toy I liked were often ignored or brushed off. Sometimes, I would receive my cousin's hand-me-downs with the message that I didn't need anything new anyway, and I should stop asking for unnecessary things. The sting of this favoritism was far deeper than I could express. It wasn't just about material things, it was the emotional distance. Jackie seemed to reserve all her warmth and affection for Leah, leaving me to feel like a stranger in my own family. Despite how deeply it hurt, I loved Leah with all my heart, and I would never want to cause her pain. But, as I grew older, I had to face the reality that no matter how much I tried, I couldn't undo the emotional divide between Jackie and me. The favoritism she showed Leah only served to deepen the gap. And even though I've made peace with my love for Leah, I'd be lying if I said it didn't still hurt when I saw how differently Jackie treated her, as if Leah were her only child. It's a feeling I've carried with me for a long time, one that has shaped my relationship with Jackie and how I navigate my place in this family. Every year, Leah's birthday was an extravagant celebration, an event filled with decorations, gifts, and all the attention a child could ask for. Jackie would go all out, making sure every detail was perfect, and the entire family and friends were involved in creating what seemed like an unforgettable day. Balloons, cake, party games, and the focus entirely on Leah. It was the kind of birthday that every child dreams of. But when my own birthday came around, it was a completely different story. My birthdays always felt like an afterthought, as if they didn't matter as much. I was never allowed to have friends over for a party, not even once. Some years, the best I got was Jackie ordering a pizza, and that was the entire celebration. No cake, no balloons, no special attention, just a plain pizza dinner, and then the day would pass by like any other day. It stung to see the stark difference between the lavish way Leah's birthdays were celebrated and the lackluster way mine were ignored. It felt like a constant reminder that I wasn't as important to Jackie, that I didn't deserve the same effort or love she poured into Leah. When I got older and started to bring this up to Jackie, pointing out how unfair it was, she didn't try to explain herself or make any attempts to right the situation. Instead, she would snap back with something like, "Go cry about it to your dad," dismissing my feelings as though they didn't matter. She would blame my dad, saying things like, "This is all his fault," trying to shift the blame to him rather than take responsibility for her own actions. It was clear to me that Jackie was refusing to acknowledge how much hurt she was causing. On the other hand, my dad did his best to make my birthday special, even though they were never as grand as Leah's celebrations. He always made sure to call me at midnight, the first one to wish me a happy birthday, no matter where he was. He'd buy me gifts, even if they weren't extravagant, and he'd do his best to make the day feel important to me, despite everything else. He saw the way Jackie treated me differently from Leah, and it upset him. I remember a couple of times when he tried to talk to Jackie about it, not in an aggressive way, but just trying to understand why she couldn't show us both the same love and affection. But those conversations never ended well. Jackie would lash out, accusing him of having no right to comment on how she raised Leah, since Mike, not my dad, was Leah's father. She made it clear that because Mike was Leah's dad, he had the right to be treated differently. It was as if my dad's role in my life somehow disqualified me from receiving the same care and attention Leah got. That was the most painful part, the idea that I was being punished for something that wasn't my fault. I couldn't understand why my own mother would choose to treat us so unequally. When I went away to college, the distance between Jackie and me became even more apparent. It felt like she was relieved to have me out of the house, and I noticed a shift in the way she treated me. Her calls became rare, and visits from her were nearly non-existent. Whenever she did reach out, it felt like more of a duty than any real concern for how I was doing. Meanwhile, Mike, Leah, and even my dad made far more of an effort to stay in touch with me. They checked in, visited more often, and made sure I was settling in well. It was comforting, but it also stung that my own mother seemed indifferent to my life, especially when others were stepping up where she wasn't. The lack of love and attention from Jackie hurt deeply, but I tried not to let it affect me too much. I kept holding out hope that, in time, whatever issue she had with me and my dad would fade, and we could have a normal, caring relationship. But as the years went on, that seemed less and less likely. It was during my final year of college that I met Ian, my ex-boyfriend. We quickly became serious, and for the first time in a long while, I felt seen and supported. Ian treated me with respect and made me feel valued, something I didn't often experience from my family, especially not from Jackie. When I graduated, it was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. My dad, stepdad Mike, and Leah were there, and even Jackie showed up, though Mike had to persuade her to come. I knew she wouldn't have shown up if it hadn't been for his persistence, but still, it meant a lot to have them all there on such a big day. That day, Jackie met Ian for the first time, and I was surprised by how she seemed captivated by him. But then, as the day went on, her behavior took a strange turn. She began making subtle, hurtful comments about Ian and me. The first time she said something, I tried to brush it off. I'd grown used to Jackie making remarks that were more hurtful than she probably realized, though I sometimes wondered if she did realize. I convinced myself it wasn't worth confronting her about it. But then, during lunch after the ceremony, she did it again. In front of Ian and the whole family, she said something implying that I wasn't attractive enough to be with someone like him. She even joked that I was perhaps his charity case. That was the moment I could no longer ignore her behavior. It wasn't just hurtful this time, it was outright humiliating. And she said it in front of Ian, someone who had always made me feel special. The embarrassment I felt in that moment was unbearable, and I wasn't about to let it slide again. So I calmly turned to Jackie and told her that the way she was speaking about me and Ian was inappropriate. I made it clear that I was more than just my looks and that her comments made me uncomfortable. Not just me, but everyone at the table. Ian was clearly embarrassed by her remarks, and even my dad, who usually avoided confrontation with Jackie, was visibly upset. He shot her a few warning glances, probably hoping she'd understand and stop before things escalated further. He didn't want to cause a scene in front of Ian, but it was obvious he was just as bothered as I was. It wasn't a small, careless comment. This was just another instance of Jackie undermining me during an important moment in my life. After the graduation day incident, I found out that Jackie and Ian had become Facebook friends, which really took me by surprise. Ian told me that she had sent him a friend request, and he asked if it was okay for him to accept. Not wanting to make a big deal of it, I told him it was his choice. He accepted, mostly to avoid the potential drama that would have followed if he hadn't. It was strange, though, because Jackie, who had barely shown any interest in my life during college, was now making an effort to stay connected with Ian on social media. I didn't understand why, but I let it go at the time. Over the 3 years Ian and I were together, Jackie kept a polite but distant relationship with him. She would occasionally check in on him, comment on his posts, or send him a brief message on Facebook. Nothing overtly strange, but there was always a sense of familiarity that wasn't there with me. Jackie had never treated me with that kind of attention. The oddness of it didn't go unnoticed by Ian, who pointed out more than once how he thought my mom might be jealous of me and my life. he started to notice all the subtle ways Jackie seemed to compete with me, belittling me, dismissing my accomplishments, and having an unusual focus on my relationships. I had never considered the possibility that Jackie might be jealous of me. I had always thought of her behavior as a result of unresolved issues with my dad or just general hostility. But Ian, looking at things from the outside, was insistent. He could see how she would try to undermine me and how she seemed disturbed by the idea of me being happy or successful. At first, I resisted the idea. It was hard to accept that my own mother could feel something like jealousy towards me. But the more Ian brought it up, the more I started to notice the patterns myself. Whether it was about my looks, my relationships, or even my achievements, Jackie always found a way to make me feel smaller. And when I thought about it from the perspective that maybe, just maybe, she was jealous, it all started to make sense. After that realization, I began to grow more cautious around Jackie. I found myself guarding my emotions more tightly, not letting her comments get under my skin as much. I wasn't sure what to do with the knowledge that my own mother might be jealous of me, but it definitely changed the way I interacted with her. I couldn't look at her behavior the same way anymore. What once felt like indifference or coldness now seemed more like a twisted sense of competition. And that thought, more than anything, made me distance myself emotionally from her even further. Ian and I broke up after 3 years of dating. Our breakup was pretty amicable. We both knew that while we cared about each other, our lives were moving in different directions, and it was time to part ways. We promised to stay friends, to keep in touch, but as is often the case, life got in the way. I got busy with my own life, and Ian did the same. Before long, we lost touch completely, and that chapter of my life quietly closed. Then, 2 years ago, I met Phil and everything changed. He was, and still is, everything I could have ever wanted in a partner. Phil is kind and thoughtful and makes me feel valued in ways I hadn't experienced before. With him, things felt right. We talked openly about our dreams and our future, and for the first time I started to see a real path towards the kind of life I wanted. A life filled with love, stability, and eventually a family. I'm truly happy with him, something I don't take for granted. This year, we found out I was pregnant. It wasn't something we had planned for right away, but it wasn't an unwelcome surprise either. Phil and I had always dreamed of starting a family, and while the timing may have been unexpected, the excitement was real. We were overjoyed and immediately began planning for this new chapter in our lives. The first thing we did was get married. It was a small, intimate ceremony with just close friends and family. Leah, of course, was my bridesmaid. Having her by my side on that day meant the world to me. Jackie, my mom, attended the wedding, but throughout the ceremony, I could sense her disapproval, though I wasn't entirely sure why. She looked frustrated, like something about the whole event bothered her. Later, when we had a moment alone, Jackie finally let her feelings spill out. She told me, rather bluntly, that she never wanted me to marry someone like Phil. In her mind, I was making a huge mistake by being with him, and then she went on to tell me that she had actually hoped I would get back together with my ex-boyfriend, Ian. I couldn't help but laugh when she said it. It was such an absurd suggestion, so completely out of touch with the reality of my life now. I thought maybe she had had a little too much to drink at the wedding and was just speaking nonsense. The idea that she was still stuck on my ex, while I had moved on and found happiness with Phil, was almost laughable. I tried to ignore her comments, as I've learned to do over the years, but deep down, it bothered me that, even on one of the happiest days of my life, my wedding day, Jackie couldn't just be happy for me. Instead, she had found a way to criticize and make me feel like I wasn't living up to her expectations. But this time, thankfully, I had other things in my life to focus on. I had Phil by my side, a baby on the way, and for once, I chose to focus on the love and joy in my life, rather than her negativity. After Phil and I got married, we decided to wait until the wedding was over to announce the big news. I was pregnant. We both felt it was the right thing to do, share the news only after our wedding so no one could question our decision. My dad, Leah, and Mike were thrilled when we told them. They were genuinely over the moon for me, and their happiness made that moment even more joyful. But, as expected, Jackie couldn't just let me have that happiness without adding her own sour comments. She started questioning whether I was sure about having a child, making remarks about how I might regret jumping into motherhood without first enjoying married life with Phil for a few years. Her words took me by surprise. It felt like she was projecting her own regrets or unresolved issues onto me. I couldn't believe that even in this joyous moment, she couldn't support me without making me second-guess myself. But this time, I didn't let her words slide. I was becoming a mother, and the thought of her trying to belittle or overshadow my happiness, and worse, potentially doing the same to my child, made me stand my ground in a way I never had before. I calmly reminded her that I was not her and that I would never regret having a child with a man I love. I made it clear that no matter what the timing was, I had no doubts about becoming a mother. For so long, I had let Jackie walk all over me, picking apart my decisions, making me feel small. But this time was different. I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate or undermine me anymore, especially when it came to my family. That's when Jackie revealed her true feelings. She said she couldn't believe that I, the daughter she had always treated as second best, was the first to get pregnant and give the family its first grandbaby, and that she had always expected Leah to win. As if this wasn't enough, Jackie then went on to justify that she just wasn't ready to be a grandmother so soon and accused me of trying to ruin her reputation in her social circle by having a baby so soon after getting married. Hearing her say that was like a slap in the face. Not only did she outright insult me, but now my pregnancy, my joy, was somehow an inconvenience to her image. It was a shocking display of selfishness, even for Jackie. She wasn't worried about me or my future as a mother. She was only worried about how she would look to her friends. At that point, I had had enough. I firmly told her that if she truly felt that way, she wouldn't have any role in my child's life. I told her that if her reputation was more important than being a supportive mother and grandmother, then she was officially banned from my child's life, and I would be going no contact with her. The conversation quickly escalated into a huge argument, with emotions running high on both sides, but I asked her to leave. Ever since then, Jackie has been sending me multiple messages, trying to guilt-trip me into apologizing to her for my outburst. She says she just wanted to be truthful about how she felt and has accused me of being overly sensitive because of my pregnancy hormones. She thinks, as my mother, she has every right to voice doubts about my quick marriage and pregnancy. Am I the jerk for cutting Jackie out of my life after the way she has treated me? It's been a week since my last update, so in the end, Jackie had no choice but to back down. Leah and Mike apparently called her out for being insensitive towards me and asked her to let this matter go. It seems that, for the first time, Jackie has also realized I was being serious about cutting her out of my life and understood that I wouldn't tolerate her toxicity anymore, especially when it came to my child. She has reluctantly apologized to me, promising not to be so negative about my pregnancy or my marriage again. Well, buckle up because I've got an update for you all that I could have never seen coming. 3 days ago, Leah threw me a beautiful baby shower. Everything was perfect, just as I had imagined. Jackie, of course, was present, though she seemed unusually nervous that day. I noticed that she kept glancing at the door as if she were expecting something or someone. The moment the doorbell rang, everything changed. Jackie practically jumped off the couch and made an announcement to the room. She had a surprise for everyone. I had no idea what to expect. I thought it might be something small, maybe a gift or a guest I wasn't expecting, but I could never have predicted what would come next. To my complete shock, it was Ian, my ex-boyfriend. He looked beyond uncomfortable, clearly out of place as my mom dragged him into the room, parading him in front of everyone like some bizarre spectacle. I was completely confused. This was my baby shower, my special day, and yet here was my ex standing in front of me. I couldn't understand what was happening. My mom then told me how she had talked with Ian for weeks and had convinced him to finally show up and give me a second chance. She then looked at me and told me that she knew how I was settling for less by being with Phil, but that I did not have to worry anymore as Ian was here for me. Suffice it to say, my guests were all horrified, exchanging shocked glances after hearing what my mom had to say. I kept looking from my mom to Ian, trying to comprehend what was unfolding. That's when Ian, looking both embarrassed and apologetic, started speaking. First, he apologized for interrupting the baby shower and told me how he never wanted to be here, which only added to the confusion swirling in my mind. Then he continued to tell me how my mom had hounded him on Facebook, sending him relentless messages, wanting him to profess his undying love for me. She was convinced that he and I were meant to be together and that I was making a terrible mistake by having a baby with Phil. My mom, in her deluded state, had told him that I was wasting my life by becoming a mother so soon and that she wanted him to take me away. The whole thing was so absurd. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Ian explained that he had no intention of rekindling anything between us, but he felt like he needed to come and tell me face to face just how vile my mother had been acting behind my back. He was there to expose my mother's manipulative behavior. As he spoke, I could feel the tension in the room rise. Everyone was staring at my mom, whose face had gone bright red with embarrassment. She had clearly never expected him to speak of her that way. Ian then turned to Jackie, and with a firm voice, he told her she needed to stop messaging him. He said she needed to move on with her life and had no right to sabotage my baby shower or my life. I could see the anger and humiliation on my mom's face, but for once, she didn't have a snappy comeback or a defense. Ian continued to tell her that he had always known her to be jealous of me and that he was very disappointed to see that she had never changed, even after all these years. Jackie stood there, speechless as the weight of her actions became apparent to everyone in the room. After Ian had finished, he turned to me and apologized again. He said he was sorry for the disruption but felt it was necessary for him to reveal the truth about my mother's behavior, as he wanted me to see the true face of Jackie. Before leaving, he handed me a small gift he had brought for my baby, which was really sweet of him despite the awkwardness of the situation. I thanked him for coming and for having the courage to tell me what was going on. Without his honesty, I don't know if I would have ever believed that my mom could do something like this. Plotting behind my back, trying to continue to sabotage the most important moments of my life. Continued down this path, their marriage would never work. Mike had tried for years to make things work with Jackie, but the toxic behavior and manipulation were too much for him to ignore anymore. After multiple attempts to confront her, he made the difficult decision to separate. He was done trying to fix things with someone who wouldn't acknowledge their faults and who was so emotionally destructive. It was a hard decision for him, but he felt it was the only way forward. He's been much happier since making the break, and Leah, Mike, and I have grown closer as a result. He's been supportive, visiting us regularly, and being involved in the baby's life. As for me, life has been peaceful since the fallout. While it was incredibly painful to realize just how toxic my mother could be, I found strength in creating boundaries and protecting myself and my family from her manipulative behavior. Phil and I are doing well, and we're focusing on our little family. I don't know what the future holds with Jackie, but I'm no longer allowing her to dictate my happiness. Thank you all for the support you've shown over the months. It's been a journey of healing and growth for me, and I'm grateful for the new chapter in my life, free from the toxicity that used to consume me.